Ready, set, go. What is up, my friends?
What up?
Jill Love Phoenix and my man Kevin Krzyzaniak.
And my man, Steven.
That's
I always
right.
like to call you Stein, but that ain't
It's
right.
Steen.
Steen.
Yeah.
All the time. Steven Stein.
Does he?
I'm like, it's not Stein.
It's the same thing. Like I was just asking you about butchering the name, and I get that every day. So it is all good.
He makes up nicknames for everyone.
I'm one of
so.
those guys too.
Yep.
I'm one of those guys too. If I know you long enough, give me about, I don't know, dude, if I see you every day, it'll take about a month. But if we see bump into each other like once a week, within like the first 90 days, you will have a nickname. I promise you that. So long time no see.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Thank you guys for inviting me into your lovely home, feeding me an amazing dinner, and sitting down to talk with us tonight. So
Yeah.
Thank you for coming all the way up
I love
here.
having your energy here.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
We talked about this like a year ago.
Right.
We were at the Refuge Recovery Regional Conference in Nashville. Is that when we kind of
Mhm.
the conversation started? And I think we were like just getting the ball rolling with NC Raw at that time. And we talked about doing like a couples thing, and like maybe some yoga stuff was like discussed, and you know, things just like life happened, and here we are today to do
Here
the
we
thing.
are.
So thanks again for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
Excited to have this conversation with the two of you and get to know you guys. You know, that's what this is all about, is like, I was telling you before we started that I feel so privileged and like getting to meet such amazing individuals and getting to know them on such a personal level, like once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week. It's fucking awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
So who are you guys? You guys are a couple living here in Asheville. Who's Jill? What do you do? What are you up to?
Let's see.
Start with a big, heavy question.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be here for a while because I'm a pretty big deal. No, I'm just kidding. I have lived in Asheville since 2002, and I've been through many life changes since I've been here, but I am a hairstylist 3 days a week, but my real passion is teaching yoga and also being a student of yoga, and so that's kind of my everyday jam. That's what I'm totally into, and I'm I'm 3/4 of a way through a teacher training right now for a lineage of yoga called Kundalini, and that's just totally transformed my life. And we've been together a little over 3 years now, off and on, and mostly on.
Well, I'm sure the off part will come up here.
That will surface soon why the off part was there, but he's I'll let him tell you about him, but he's definitely my best teacher and my best friend, and I'm a pretty lucky girl. And what about you?
How do you top that, man?
Try.
Not
Just
sure.
try. No.
No, this question's actually interesting because it came up before. I've brought it up before at meetings. Is like, who are you? And instantly, we all want to go to our career, right, or our job, or you know, what do you do for a living?
This identity that we
Right.
carry around. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's much more than that.
Uh-huh.
So I still struggle with that question. Like, I'm not sure, but
You're viewing it from the Buddhist eyes.
right.
Yeah.
I'm just a being, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna answer the same way, sort of, though, the cliche way. And you know, my biggest passion is mushroom foraging. That's my thing. I feel like I'm part mushroom.
I see the resemblance.
That's my thing.
I think I
But-
mentioned to you he sits in the dark a lot,
Yeah,
so
you did.
he's kind of mushroom-like.
But also being a parent, you know what I mean? That's top of the list. You know, being a partner is big. Being a person in recovery and being a counselor now, all that stuff. It's all mingles. Doing art, it all mingles together. So gumbo soup.
Gumbo soup. What do they call it in the South? They got something in the South, a nice hodgepodge of
They do. What is that? Jambalaya.
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 Yeah.
I just want to say chow chow.
Chow chow.
That's one of those jumbled together southern things.
How long you been doing the foraging? Like, when did that start?
Moving here.
Yeah.
Moving here, it started. So it piqued my interest in Florida when I lived there. So I went from Florida to here. And what piqued my interest was palms. Like so many palms, and there was all these little fruits on there. And I was like, I wonder if I can eat these. And I really wanted to know. So moving here, I got into the forest, very different mountains, very different than the flatlands, you know. And there's like mushrooms, and there's all these cool plants and flowers, and like so much to like look at.
So much life.
Yes, so much life. So that was 9 years ago. And once I got that little taste of I want to know, that's when it all began.
So the curiosity began with like visually kind of like seeing them out in nature. It wasn't something of like initially from a nutritional like perspective. It was more of like a curiosity, like, hey, what is all this? What's going on out here?
Yeah. It was more like, ooh, I want to know what these are, but I want to eat them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But now it's kind of transformed and probably to like as you're selecting what it is that you're looking for, or that you're picking, that somewhere an underlying point you're concerned with what type of nutritional value you're going to get, or what type of medicinal value
Exactly.
it'll provide.
Yeah, like, I mean, ideally I want to be dealing with medicinals mostly, because I want to be helping people, and I want to be giving medicine to people, and that's where it's at now for me. Is like I have this small category of good medicinal mushrooms that are my specialty, sort of. Yeah.
Jill, you get in on the mushroom foraging game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
She's good.
Oh, yeah.
She's good?
I've got quite the eye,
got an
don't
eye?
I?
Uh-huh.
It took a little bit for it to, what do you call it? For me to earn my mushroom eye-ness. But yeah, I can definitely get down with some mushroom foraging, and it's fascinating. Like, you start getting out into an area where like there's nothing here, but you start looking and they're just like bam, 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 bam. It's so much fun. And then getting to see which ones you can eat and seeing the different colors
And being somebody in recovery, like as you maneuver in your daily life and you tell somebody that, yeah, you know, I'm a mushroom forager, like the first thing comes up is like, dude,
Let me get
let me
some.
get some,
you
bro.
got the psychophilia.
Yeah.
What do you see?
What do you see? And so like just like navigating those waters and like clearing the air, and that like I'm not a psychedelic mushroom forager, that I'm strictly in it for, when I say medicinal value, like it's true, authentic medicinal purposes. I'm fascinated with like to learn what some of these medicinal properties and nutritional value and stuff like that. I'm fascinated to learn like what the power of these mushrooms and like what it is that they can do and provide for someone, because they're everywhere, dude. Where I live up in the mountains, man, I'll just go for like a little stroll. It doesn't even have to rain with like, because I live in like a rainforest. So it doesn't even have to rain like within the last couple of days. If it's rained within the last like week, like there's literally like dozens of species that I am not skilled enough to identify. However, I have been curious as to like, hey, what is there anything here that could potentially like benefit me? I'm specifically interested in like cognitive performance, like nootropic type stuff and things like that. I know like it's kind of like hip in like the supplement world. It's like the mushroom vitamins and stuff like that. But I'm kind of specifically interested in that. But if you would like maybe talk a little bit just about what are some of the properties that these mushrooms do
Sure.
provide.
And I'm coming your way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're doing it.
We're
dude.
going.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're
Yeah,
going.
we are
We're putting
doing
on
it.
boots, and we're going in the woods.
My boots are ready, sir. I got a 6-year-old that just runs through the woods, dude.
Yes. So it's interesting that you brought up cognitive and the brain. Lion's mane is the mushroom.
Okay.
The mushroom for that specifically. So lion's mane is this big white mushroom. Looks like teeth coming off it. Looks like you'd be in a cave and you'd see something like lion's mane growing. But great for the brain. Really good for focus. Really good for memory, function. It helps regenerate cells in your brain.
Okay.
And it's powerful mushroom, but it tastes great.
Okay.
Tastes like crab meat.
No shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my
Oh,
favorites.
dude.
I say that about like all the edible mushrooms. I'm like, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But lion's mane is delicious. Like when I found lion's mane, when either one of us have found lion's mane, there's a discussion. Do we tincture it? Do we eat it?
Okay.
I usually am like, I want to eat it. But
Yeah, that's the debate, right? So you can make medicine from these mushrooms, or you can eat them, and you're still getting a lot of good value. Tea. A lot of people make tea out of certain mushrooms too. Cool thing about lion's mane, no poisonous lookalikes.
Gotcha.
That's really
Which
important.
that's a big reason why I never like ventured into like even reading a book. I was like, I didn't feel comfortable like even
Right.
picking anything. That's huge
'cause you're
warning,
smart.
right? Big time
Yeah.
warnings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So there is some lookalikes to it, but they also have good value to them.
Mhm.
So they're good to eat as well. So that's lion's mane, and that's for the brain. My favorite mushroom that I love to forage, that is my baby, is chaga.
Mm-hmm.
And chaga is a really interesting mushroom.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us what that is, because I never even heard of it until I connected with you, and then
Mhm.
like you're like, from what I see on social media, not only are you fascinated with this mushroom, but you're like the chaga man of Asheville. Huh?
Mr. Mushroom.
No, I don't know if I'm the man, but yeah, I love it. I love it. It was the first mushroom I learned that wasn't like a mushroom. Like you think of a mushroom, you think of
It doesn't look like a mushroom.
nothing like
Mhm.
it. Yeah, so no cap, no stem. You know, it's this big knot on the tree essentially. And I'll start from the beginning about this, and I could talk for hours about this mushroom, but
How much of this have you heard, Joe?
Oh, I can give the same speech at this
Okay.
point. When we do tailgate markets and stuff, I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you handle them, I'm over here.
Oh yeah. I showed my girlfriend's son a picture of you. I think the one that you sent me on the website, and I showed him a picture of you holding it, and he was like, "What is that? A rock?"
Right.
I was like,
right.
Yeah.
And I get, is that burnt wood?
Mhm.
Is that charcoal? What is that? So many, and it's funny because some people will be like, "Ooh, that's beautiful," you know, really
ones that
enamored
know,
by it, right?
yeah.
And other people are like, "Ugh, that's a mushroom."
That's ugly.
You want me to eat that?
I love it. I love it. So when I learned this mushroom, it stood out from all the rest because of its appearance, but also that it can be tricky to find, and that makes it a nice little hunt, you know, like or a treasure hunt while you're out there, which is interesting. So that's what really drew me into it. But the more I started to learn about it, the more it was like, this is the top. So in Chinese medicine, chaga is the king. It's the king of herbs. It's top of the list. Reishi is another one that's right there too. But chaga is a super mushroom, super herb. And what that means is that it's good for all kinds of things in the body. And I think its most potency is your immune system. So
Okay.
it builds up the immune system, makes that strong and healthy, which plays in your everyday life. I haven't been sick in years, and that's
Huge
no
this
joke.
time of year. Everybody's
no
sick
joke.
He's
right
not
now.
exaggerating. I've never seen him sick.
Wow. How often do you consume it?
Every day.
Every day?
For the last 9 years.
Wow. What's the best way to prepare it? The tea or
I do the tea.
yeah?
I take the tincture as well, so I get a double dose,
Mhm.
which is fine. Great thing about chaga, there's no toxic compounds in it, so you can't OD on it.
Mhm.
So that's good.
And no psychoactive properties again.
No
just- yeah.
psychoactive,
Mhm.
nothing, right? I also have arthritis in my knees,
Okay.
and I hike a lot, so I get inflammation a lot. And chaga is anti-inflammatory. Another big part of it.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. And then going from there, it's got the highest antioxidants of anything on the planet. Any food, any medicine. It's huge. Great for your skin. So it's black on the outside, and all that black stuff's called melanin. So what that does is it protects the mushroom, because chaga likes high elevations. It grows up 4,000 feet and above, and it loves the cold, and it loves just that harsh environment. It's only medicinal on a birch tree, which is my favorite tree too. Another draw.
So it's only medicinal on a birch tree. Is
Right.
it something with the way that the tree interacts with the mushroom?
Yeah.
It'll grow on other trees, but it's only
Right.
okay.
So the birch tree itself is medicinal.
Okay.
everything from the bark to the leaves.
Was not aware of that.
And so when the chaga is a parasite and it goes into the middle of the tree and it just sucks all of the nutrients out, which eventually will kill the tree, but it's just putting all of this good medicine right into the mushroom that we get to consume later.
It's magic.
That is magic,
It's
man.
magic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and let me throw in there that it's anti-tumor. So a lot of studies have shown that it reduces the size of cancerous tumors. And that's huge.
yeah.
That's huge.
How do you prepare it once you've found it? How do you prepare it to
It's-
make tea or to
Mm-hmm.
manufacture the tincture?
So chaga is different than other mushrooms because it's a process, and it's not an easy process. So once you find it, and it's this big knot, really hard, you have to break that down. And I don't.
Are you a good tree climber? You
I
climb
used
trees?
To be. I used to be. I've fallen out of some trees, and that slowed me down a little bit.
It's up in the air, right?
Right.
Pretty high?
Right. Yeah.
Usually,
I've gotten
yeah.
good at rock throwing though.
Okay.
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to get mad at me because I would ask him to tell me where he was going hiking. He's like, in the woods, babe. And I'm like, need a location. And he's like, I've been doing this for years. I'm like, one time you fall and hit your head, I'm not going to know where you are. Like, at least tell me the direction. Let me know the general area, which he has gotten better at.
And my son witnessed that. He watched me fall out of a tree one time. We were out foraging together, and he's like, "Whoa, don't ever do that."
You started practicing throwing rocks after that. Huh?
Yeah. So you get it out of the tree, and the really important part is to be sustainable about it. So you don't want to like take all the chaga you can get. It's really important to leave about 25% of the chaga in the tree. That way it can regrow.
Okay.
And it's a gift that keeps giving, which is beautiful. Chaga kills the tree eventually. It grows out of the middle of the tree and it'll take over the tree. So once you have your big knot that you've foraged, you need to bring it home and you need to smash it to pieces, which if you're a big company, you throw it in a grinder and no problem, right? But I'm old school, I'm traditional. I like to do it by hand. I got a mallet and a cardboard box, and I smash up my chaga by
For
hand for hours.
Stress relief.
Yeah.
It's good for people in recovery to smash things.
Yes.
But then you have to dry it, and it has to. I like to put it out in the sun. It collects vitamin D from the sun while it's sitting there. Once it's dry, you can store it and keep it forever. But then you make your tea or your tincture out of it from there.
Yeah. Sounds like a process.
It is.
You also kind of have a business around this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody that might be interested in this particular medicine but may not know where to start, they can purchase some from you,
Mm-hmm.
but they can also connect with you for excursions, for hikes, for trips.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and plug that real quick.
plug
Get
this
it out of the
real
way
quick,
since we're
sure.
on that topic.
Sure. So, and I appreciate the moment to do that. My business is called Blue Ridge Chaga Connection, and just last year I started doing the walks, and Jill kind of definitely pushed me in that direction. It's like, you need to do this,
yeah.
you need to do this, and when I did it, it took off, and I loved it. And this is something I'm going to talk about more later, hopefully. But this discussion came up was, what do you do when you find a passion that you really enjoy? You share it, right? And that makes you feel better about it. And
I was just talking about this before
Yes,
we started. Yeah.
Yes, and then it grows.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. So leading the walks was like, I got a quick rush out of it. I loved it. You know what I mean? It was being addicted in a good way.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy those. Now, I don't take people on chaga hunts. I do all the edible mushrooms and many medicinals. Chaga is a tough hike, and not a lot of people can go do that. And I'm not saying that in a arrogant way. It's just the way it is. It can be difficult. But yeah, so I do the walks, but I also do presentations, so people can come and learn, like, how do you forage chaga? Where did chaga come from? How does it grow? Like, I can go over all that stuff, and I'm very open about sharing all that information because, right, information's power, and that's how people learn and
Certainly.
they want to know. So
It sounds like you started this conversation off stating that you're a person in recovery. It sounds like this process has become very therapeutic for you in this journey of recovery, in getting out there for your like individual self, but then also like as a form of service and giving back to the community and kind of like providing that level of fulfillment and value and meaning to your life. Like you talked about something that you're passionate about, right? Like so many people just like they need that push that Jill gave you. They're like, we're like afraid of the fear of failure, right? Like we're like, you know, I don't want to start a podcast. Nobody's going to listen, you know, I don't want to, who's going to want to go on a hiking trip to find mushrooms with me? And then your friends, like me being one of them, I open up my Instagram and I see the joy on people's faces as they are holding baskets full of mushrooms. No, really, like every weekend, like over the summer and stuff, I would see pictures and like people were like stoked. And then like I'm sure you get amazing feedback from the individuals once they take them home, prepare them, cook them, eat them, whatever it is. I told you I met a guy today. I went over to Mountain View Recovery and I met a guy. He was asking me who was coming on the podcast. I told him you, and he was like, yeah, I went on a hunt with him. He was talking about chicken of the woods, and he was like holding his arms out like this. He's like, that guy knows where the biggest chicken of the woods is. And I was like, yeah, he does, dude. He totally does. So like, talk a little bit about what that therapeutic process and like what this provides to your recovery and like what it means to you, you know, outside of the, you know, joy of taking folks and the little bit of money that it might bring to you. Like, what else does it do for you? Yeah.
Definitely huge. And I'm glad you brought that up because this process of recovery, you need a passion. I really believe that. And people find it along the way if they don't initially have it. But for me, it was a healthy place to put my energy, you know, and something to do with myself, in one way to put it. But, you know, the idea of the natural healing means so much more to me in recovery than it ever did. You know, I kind of started all this in addiction. And there's no way I would be successful at any of this if I was still in addiction. Like, I'd be a mess, and I'd be, like, stumbling around people, you know, out in the forest and probably pointing out the wrong mushrooms. And
heavy liability there.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's the scary part about teaching people mushrooms is they're their own people, and they're going to go out and I've had people be like, oh, I ate this mushroom, and they'll show me a picture, and I'll be like, oh, no. Like, do we need to go to the hospital?
Pre-walk, not.
And that's always a disclaimer when you take people on walks. But, yeah, I mean, sharing it, you get your sense of community, which is mega in recovery. You know, you have to have the right people and healthy people around you. And, you know, being able to share it with people in recovery is really special to me, too, because I see people that didn't so much have a passion that like now their passion's mushrooms too. And I was like, oh, it makes me feel so, you know, like I want to cry a little bit. And yeah, it's good stuff.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah. Now, Jill, your passion, you're a hairdresser,
that is
hair
not
designer.
My passion. No
and your
offense,
passion,
clients. Love you guys.
Let me set it up. I'm setting you up. And your passion happens to be yoga. And you're a yoga teacher. Where do you teach at? What do you teach? What does that do for you? When did you start?
Oh God, all these questions. So I started doing yoga in 1998 with a
before it was like super hip.
A VHS tape and a yoga mat in my my living room, and I was actually married at the time to an addict. I have this thing for addicts. So I'm an addict for an addict. So, and we started to have a lot of issues once I found out he was I thought he was using again. So I found this video, found this yoga mat, and I started getting on the mat. And so that was in 1998. And then I kind of dipped in and out of it just lifestyle. I was traveling for 3 years in my Volkswagen bus, nowhere really, I just didn't.
Badass, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Didn't really have the commitment at that point to want to make it part of my daily practice. And then when I landed in Asheville in 2002, a friend of mine, Shannon DeClough, if you're watching, hey Shannon, she used to teach at a studio that I'm just now getting the opportunity to start teaching at. It's like this beautiful full circle, but it's West Asheville Yoga in West Asheville in Haywood. And she came in one time and I did her hair and we just became friends. And so then she started teaching yoga and I was like, oh, I'm going to come to your class. And so every week for, I don't even remember how long, I went to her class and it really started to get me back in there. And then marriage number 2 to an addict. And I stopped doing self-care and I got out of it again and just went into full codependent mode and like needed to be needed and run the show and blah, 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 blah. And our marriage ended, thankfully, in 2015, and I moved out, and a friend of mine invited me to go to a class at Asheville Community Yoga, and I was like, yes, that would be great. So I went with her, and now they can't keep me out of there. Literally. Hi, ladies.
Truth.
Namaste. And Michael. But that place is such a beautiful environment, and it's a nonprofit donation-based studio, so myself and all the other teachers teach for free and make it accessible for everybody in the area to come and do yoga whether they can afford to do it or not. But I started going there and literally would be there sometimes 2-3 days a week, or a day, I'm sorry, 2-3 days, 2 to 3 times a day, every day of the week. I was always in there. And then in 2016, I decided to go through their teacher training program. So I got my certification there, and then I started teaching there, I think it was 2016. Yeah, like a month after I graduated. Yeah, it was 9 months. A month after I graduated and got my certification, I started teaching there, and I've been teaching. Right now, I teach a meditation class on Wednesday nights at 6:15, and then on Fridays, I teach Gentle Flow at 12:15. But I volunteer a lot and step in and sub when I can. I was teaching like 3 classes up until a couple weeks ago, and I let one of them go just for my schedule-wise. But so I teach there, and then I also, like I mentioned, I'm going to start subbing and hopefully stepping into a regular class at West Asheville Yoga at the end of this month on the 28th. I'm subbing for a teacher there. And then I just started teaching a Kundalini class, which is my jam, last Friday at Longtime Sun in Fairview on Fridays at 10 in the morning.
It sounds like the initial like dive back into the yoga practice, like you kind of got a little taste of what it could offer, a little bit of relief when you needed it years ago, and then having gone through somewhat of a difficult breakup, difficult marriage, kind of went back to what you knew.
Yeah, it was like muscle memory.
Muscle memory. That's a lot like what my experience was just with meditation. Was that like I was forced to go to DUI school to get my driver's license back for DUI number 2. And I just happened to pick like the treatment that was closest to my house, that was cheapest, the most affordable, and closest to my house so I could ride my bike there. I walked in the door and the guy just happened to be teaching meditation. Like I'm talking about real simple stuff. Like my 13 weeks of group therapy was basic breathing meditation, like lay on your back and breathe, a little bit of candle gazing and stuff like that, but real simple stuff. And it took me for that hour that I was there, like it took me out of the chaos that was going on upstairs. So, once I completed the program, I went right back to doing what I was doing. I wasn't there because I had to be. However, when shit did get real and I was ready to change, I immediately began looking up meditation-based approaches to recovery, and that's how I found refuge. And so because I had that experience 7 years prior, I knew that it would work for me because it provided some relief in that 1 hour that I was there. So I went back, and it sounds like that was somewhat of a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what yoga is. It's moving meditation, right? And the physical asana part of it was only really introduced and developed in order to be able to sit.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat that if you're in the, the right zone or, right element, then it is just moving meditation. And it's amazing for me, my recovery is, I identify with being a person in recovery from an eating disorder and body shaming and all these different kinds of issues that come into that world when you're, looking at yourself in a mirror and you see the funhouse mirror and everybody else sees Jill, but it's not like that when you're in that world. And getting onto a mat and learning how to breathe and connect and go inward instead of trying to focus on, what it looks externally. And it's so deep. I mean, that first year, I probably cried on my mat more than I did anything. And it was such a release. It was amazing. Like, I'd walk in this great mood and get on my mat, and I don't know what happened. I would just be a puddle of tears and just be in child's pose or just going through it, tears streaming down my face, and just teaching yourself how to be vulnerable and give yourself the opportunity to be so that you can heal. And it's been one of the most therapeutic elements in my life. I mean, it really has.
So many people, specifically in like early recovery, could benefit from both a meditation and specifically a yoga practice. However, like, we didn't, may or may not have like taken care of ourselves physically for so many years, right? And we like have this perception of like the yoga teacher and the yoga mats, and we're all flexible and holding these poses and all this stuff, and that's like probably a false sense of reality.
That's about that much of it, and that's a false sense of reality.
And so like, how do we like encourage folks to like overcome that fear and like walk in, because a lot of folks aren't going to walk into a yoga class not clueless and not having any ideas. Like, most people probably would start like messing around on YouTube, and like investigating what it is, right? And so like, I guess my question is like, where would you suggest somebody start? Somebody that's interested in a practice, somebody in early recovery.
Why are you
Can I squash something real quick though?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So like, a lot of people have this perception like yoga is like tight pants and like it's girls and you have to be super bendy. Like, none of that is reality. You know what I mean? There's lots of different kinds of yoga, but if you really like get to the heart of it, it's so good for the body and it's so good for recovery. I say always grab a friend, especially when you're in early recovery. Grab a friend and go, and you'll realize like that intimidation, once you get in there, it's just like melt away.
Yeah,
Like
gone.
it's
Gone.
but yeah.
That's so hot. You just answered that for me. It's just working. It's interesting because, I always tell people I have so many people that I talk to about yoga. I mean, I'm a hairstylist. I'm talking to people all day long, but even just out and about. And I hear that so many times. I want to do yoga, but I'm too fat. I'm not bendy.
I'm not flexible.
I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm like, can you breathe? You can do yoga. And first of all, you're probably breathing wrong. Let me teach you. Guarantee it, you're probably not breathing right. But I mean, honestly, for me, I teach the gentle class. I'm not that I'm plugging for myself. I sort of am, but I'm not. The Friday class at Asheville Community Yoga at 12:15 is a gentle class that I teach. And a lot of the times, I mean, it's on the Refuge newsletter every week. And for a long time, I had a really good showing of people in Refuge that would come to that class. And so where are you guys at? Keep coming back.
Yeah.
But no, I would definitely tell people to, if you can get a friend to go with you, but always to start out with a gentle class and just go in there and roll around on the floor for a little bit and get comfortable with hearing the terms. Most people don't drop Sanskrit, so it's not so intimidating. I have teachers that drop Sanskrit words, and I'm like, what does that mean? Just give me the common terms. But to start out with a gentle class, a DVD is great. YouTube is great. Like anything to get you moving and breathing. And I personally like classes because I like to be in a community, even if I don't talk to anybody. I like to feel like I'm being held and supported in that way, especially in early recovery. But I also get that it could be super intimidating and uncomfortable for people to go into that environment. But I always say, don't just go once and say that's it. Go to a different class, go to a different studio, go to a different teacher, hear a different voice until you find the one that resonates with you and that gets you connecting with your breath and slowing down your mind and just giving yourself an hour. Like that is such a beautiful gift, to give yourself an hour to stop and be with you and like get in your own little island and be shown how to move your body in ways that you're probably not used to, and how to, connect with your mind, and like, but in a compassionate, non-judgmental way. And it's hard to do, but it's like a precious, precious gift to give ourselves, especially in today's world where everything's so fast and
chaotic,
loud and chaotic, and, it's overwhelming. So it's anything that can get, if it's a YouTube video, that's perfectly fine. That's how I started, only they were VHS tapes. But it started, and anything that gets you to just slow down and remove yourself from everything else for a little while is super important.
I like the find a buddy idea. I really do.
Yeah,
I think that
he's brought a lot of men, I don't think you've brought any women, but men in early stages of recovery to yoga without me being the teacher. I'm not even there. Like he goes on his own, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's key.
And to
Just
be
to
able
have a
to
buddy.
have the opportunity at a place like Astral Community Yoga, where it's donation based, where you don't feel obligated to, or financially restricted on what you can or can't afford to pay. It's affordable and open to anybody.
Yeah, and I'm not downplaying the benefit of paying at other studios either, because it's all energy exchange, and I think that's really important. And that's actually something that I've been really sitting with for the last year, is that paying for that energy exchange. I mean, there's other, like West Asheville Yoga, they do a sliding scale, which is really great, and it's $8 to $15 for classes there, and there's so many affordable modalities in Asheville, which is wonderful for yoga. But I love Asheville Community Yoga just because that's kind of my home, and they're wonderful.
And to talk about variety, there's 80 some teachers. So I mean, if one's not your flavor, you got many to pick from to really resonate with the teacher in a class. That's important. And yoga will make you live like forever. And mushrooms.
There's no promises.
This guy right here, he is going to live forever with
if
the
you
chaga
do
and the
yoga while eating mushrooms and drinking chaga tea, you will live forever.
The 300-year-old man in recovery. I love it, man. So many, it's difficult. I'm guilty of this myself. It's difficult to start any new routine, whether it's a meditation practice, whether it's a yoga practice, to incorporate that into this busy life that we live, even though we know the value. Like, it's clear to me, I know what meditating every single day will do to my life. When I walked into your house, you asked me, based off of our last conversation last year, how's your meditation practice going? Because there was an accountability conversation that went down. And I know that I should be I know what meditating 7 days a week will do for me, yet I still don't do it, right? And so, like, what are some techniques, or what are some ways that one could incorporate a daily yoga practice? Like, how do you establish that framework to have the momentum to do it and to show up every day? And like, what?
Well, first thing I want to say is
how often should you show up? I guess too.
Oh,
like
three times
a
a day.
It works for you.
Who needs to work? No. First thing I want to say is, I think when most people say I don't meditate, is you probably meditate and you don't even know it. And most of people, you know, like if you're washing dishes, that's meditation. Hopefully when you're driving, you're actually looking at the road, but that's still a form of meditation. Listening to music is meditation. Dancing is meditation. Mowing the lawn is meditation. So most people are doing it without even realizing they're doing it. It's just anytime you're giving yourself that moment of focus on one thing, hopefully one thing, it might be two, might be three, but you know, coming back, oh, I'm mowing the lawn, I don't want to run my foot over. I mean, that's meditation. So start out small. Same thing with yoga, like start out small. Something I think a lot of people do with, you know, New Year's goals and all these things is everybody starts out big. You're setting yourself up to fail. Like, don't remove that pressure from yourself and give yourself 5 minutes. Give yourself 10 minutes. There's plenty of clips out there. There's Gaia TV, there, or Gaia.com. There's all these different things where apps, I'm told, I'm not the techiest, so I don't use any of the apps. But there's things out there where you can do a 5 minute, you know, a couple sun salutations, a couple, you know, roll around in your bed, pulling one knee over to one side. That's what I do every morning before I even get out of bed, is I pull one knee into my chest and I do a twist. And then I go to the other side and I do another twist. And I pull my knees into my chest and my head up to my knees. I just did yoga. I'm good for, that's not my practice, but that's my get out of bed practice.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many ways to just do 10 minutes. I mean, 10 minutes doesn't sound intimidating. An hour class might not fit into your schedule right now, although I will give Asheville Community Yoga and Asheville Yoga that I know, and I think West Asheville, all three have classes up till 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Some of them start at 6 in the morning. So
Lots of opportunities.
you can find an opportunity. If not, get an app, watch a YouTube video, take 10 minutes out of your day.
10 minutes out of your day really isn't that much when I think the average consumer spends 4 to 6 hours looking at a screen in their hand. You know?
And they're looking at what?
And I think that's 4 to 6 average. There's people that are on the high ends of 8 to 12, I'm sure. You know?
Yeah, what's the saying about meditation? If you got 20 minutes, do an hour.
Yeah.
If you don't have time,
for 20.
do all day. You know, that's true of yoga too.
Yeah, and there's meditation apps out there. I mean, I get the idea of I can't turn my brain off. People come into my meditation class every single Wednesday, and I'm like, is this your first time meditating? I just can't turn my brain off. I'm like, well, wow, somebody gave you the wrong information of how this works. Buddha didn't even turn his brain off. Buddha was contemplating. You know, it's finding a point of focus and just being like, if your racing mind is your point of focus, that's still a point of focus. If your point of focus is my knees going numb, my knees going numb, my knees going numb, you're not thinking about 19 other things over here. You're thinking about your knee going numb. So that counts. You know, just stopping and breathing, that counts. Like, it's unrealistic to set yourself up for, I can't meditate. I can't turn my brain off. Who can? I can't. But that's why I like Kundalini. Because Kundalini, a big part of the Kundalini practice is meditation and mantra. And so you're repeating a mantra, or you're holding your arms up like this for, 6 minutes. You're not thinking about anything other than the fact that your shoulder blades are burning, and then you start feeling the energy that it's moving in the body, and you're just like, wow, are my hands vibrating? My hands are vibrating. One day last week, I was doing sadhana, which is an early morning practice at 5 in the morning. I go up to Longtime Sun and practice with Bob, and we were doing this meditation, and we were like opening our arms up like this for like 11 minutes, and I got done and I was like, Bob, are your hands like vibrating? And he's like, that's the heart energy moving. And I'm like, that is crazy. My whole body was just like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, just to feel that in your body, that's meditation. I mean, you have to be paying attention to what you're doing, and then you're repeating a word or a mantra or series of words, and it's fascinating to me. It's I think I was telling you about this, that my meditation practice has really changed, and that's kind of the route that it's gone, other than just kind of sitting.
How did this Kundalini come to you? How did it get onto your radar?
So I've always heard about it, and I was always heard that it was super weird.
Yeah.
And I was really resistant.
That's what I've heard too.
And it is weird.
Yeah,
it's
in
weird.
Such a fabulous way, but it's weird. And I don't think I was ready for it when I first heard about it years ago. I think I wasn't ready to go into that world. I was all about hatha, move vinyasa, And I have a friend named Tristan, and he was coming to my classes a lot. We would go to classes together a lot. And one day he's like, you should come to this Kundalini class with me with Sierra Hollister. And I'd heard about Sierra for years, like years and years. She actually brought Kundalini to Asheville back in the late 90s. And so I was like, yeah, I'd love to take one of her classes. So we go in and we do this Kriya. The sequences in Kundalini are called Kriyas. We did this Kriya, and when I left, I was like ear to ear, just like, that was awesome. And we get outside and Tristan's like, I don't know what that was. He did. He said, I just didn't like that Kriya at all. And I was like, that was awesome. And so I was there every week.
Okay.
And then Sierra offered she offered a 5-day immersion that I did last year, and then a 3-day women's immersion. And I did that. And then I found out that she was bringing a teacher training here. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, there's no way. But I really want to, and I'm really feeling called to do it. And I sat with it, and I sat with it. And then we ended up moving into this house, and I have an Airbnb, and passed out an email to the group that I was in previously with the 5-day immersion. And Sierra just instantly grabbed me and was like, I want to house the teachers at your house. And I was like,
perfect deal, huh?
oh my God, I totally have to do this. So I've had these amazing teachers. Amazing teachers in my home, and amazing training that I'm doing right now with amazing people. And it's lit a spark for sure. It's changed my whole yogic path. But that's the whole thing I wanted to mention earlier too with like yoga. This isn't a hobby. Like, this is my life. It's totally changed my whole lifestyle, how I eat, how I, talk, how I dress, how I present myself, how I practice, how I approach people. And it's a lot more than just being like, I teach yoga, now get out of my way. Like, it's different.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
How did you guys meet? Where did this relationship start? We're 45 minutes into this thing,
Right?
Go for it.
Okay. So the birth. The actual birth of it came from Tinder.
Okay. All right.
I didn't know what Tinder was. I was newly single. I've been married for 15 years total.
And that lasted.
I've had like 5 or 6, maybe 7 couples on this podcast before, and this is the first Tinder hookup that we've had.
Well, it wasn't Tinder hookup.
2 years strong.
We didn't, we saw each other
We
on
noticed each other on there. But then it graduated to OK Cupid.
I got off of there as soon as I kept getting messages from other people. I was like, ew, I'm not that kind of
and
girl.
then I was like, oh,
there's the same guy. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it became a date from there.
It was not a date.
It wasn't a date to her.
On my profile, I said no dads and no smokers. And there was a picture of his
both,
son and smoking a cigarette. And I was like, sorry, dude, I can't get down with that. Did you read my profile? Yoga, meditation, like healthy eating. Did you notice any of that? And he's like, I did. He's like,
bold.
But my son, he said, my son is 15 and lives with his mom and I'm trying to quit. And I was like, you're still a dad and you still smoke, but nice try. Yeah. And he was like, well, you can't have too many friends. You want to we were both drinking at the time. Do you want to meet for a beer? And I was like, all right, whatever. Sure, I'll meet you. And I walked into that bar and I saw that smile and I was like, shit. I'm totally going to date this guy. That's kind of how, but we didn't date for a month until a month after that. We didn't see each other again for a month because I was busy.
How long after that first date did you quit smoking, Kevin?
Long time.
Not soon enough. You quit, but then when you relapsed, you started smoking again.
And then started again and quit. Who was it? Mark Twain that said I quit 100 times. Smoking's easy. I quit 100 times. Yeah.
But he never smelled like it, and he never smoked in front of me except for once when he was drunk and was blacked out.
I was a polite smoker.
Except for that one time.
Yeah. I didn't like to smoke around people unless I was in addiction and drunk, and I'm blowing smoke in your face probably.
Yeah. You did. Yeah, you sure did.
Yeah. Horrible. But yeah.
Yeah.
Quitting smoking is very difficult.
Oh.
I quit again like 100 times, like you said, and finally got to like tried the vaping thing, and I vaped for like 2 years and didn't pick up a cigarette. Right? Well, that's not it. That doesn't do anything different, right? That's nothing. And so then I just kind of smoked for like 6 months. When we started this podcast, we would like smoke at the studio, and I was like, I'm just gonna have a pack. We're just gonna me and my friend Courtney, the producer, we would just smoke at the studio, right, on Monday night. Stressful, putting everything up, getting together. We just smoked at the studio. That went on for like 3 months, and then I quit smoking and back to vaping again. And then like just about a month and a half ago or so, I'm like, all right, I've had enough of this shit. I cannot be spending so much money on the vape and all that stuff. And so started the first time ever trying. Your boy Tommy got me on. I heard him talking about the lozenges, so I got on the lozenges, and I'm still kind of like off and on those things, sucking mint and lozenges. But I can relate to the struggles for sure, dude.
Right.
Like, definitely one of the most difficult things. I mean, shit, dude. Like, I used to smoke crack and did meth and stuff, and like here I am, like can't even like get off. I can't get off the cigs, man.
Now, let me ask you about the vapes, because I never went to the vape route, but when it first came out, I was like, people are smoking this like antifreeze, essentially. It's like, how is this better?
Yeah.
And it's still kind of controversial,
It's
right?
very
Like
controversial.
they don't know exactly what's in there, blah blah blah. But did you find that it was like, I don't need cigarettes because I'm
totally.
vaping now?
Totally, yeah, totally. It totally fulfilled that need for nicotine without a doubt. Did. And the last probably close to a year, I was on the lowest dose of nicotine, like the 3 milligram, the lowest dose. It totally fulfilled that.
And the smell's different. Like,
yeah,
you don't
I mean, you
stink.
get like fruity, like Fruit Loops and
Right.
whatever.
That stuff stinks
whatever
so
kind
bad
of.
to me.
I was into like
Can't
I
handle
was into
it.
the dessert flavors, like the Krispy Kreme donuts and all that stuff. Yeah, dude. Cornbread pudding was probably like my all-time favorite.
They have
Oh,
that
boy.
as a flavor?
Yeah, dude.
That doesn't
Yeah,
sound.
cornbread pudding. Big old clouds, you know. So sick.
Oh man, yeah, I have a hard time with those fake smells. I smell them, I'm just like, oh,
Somebody died recently, right? Like their vape blew up.
Yeah, that's happened.
it happens.
But now
quite a
everyone's
bit.
vaping weed. Now they're like, forget the e-liquids. We're just gonna smoke weed out of them, and that's like
Right.
that's the latest thing. And I don't know, I don't know what that's all about. Or CBD,
Yeah.
one of the two. It's medicine, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah, quitting smoking is no joke. I know in treatment, like that's all we did is smoke. I mean, before we even went to the gym, like first thing in the morning, we were in a big pit smoking, like smoke all day long. And when you get out of treatment, it's like it's hard because you've put so
Had
much in
smoked
there.
so
You're so
much.
used to it that
When we were deciding what treatment facility to go to, there was like, because we didn't have, we were paying out of pocket. I didn't have insurance or Medicaid, and so I was paying out of pocket, and had like 2 or 3 places on my radar, and the decision was made based off of which one I could smoke freely.
Right.
Not like on the, like, okay, you have an hour here and a smoke break here. Like, when can I walk outside anytime I want to have a cigarette? Okay, we're going to that place.
Yeah, same. When he went to detox, I was like the contact person to figure out where he was going because they couldn't get a hold of him, and they're like, well, we know you're not married, but can you make decisions? I was like, I guess I'm gonna kind of have to. And so like when we were getting places, this seems so contradictory, but places for him to narrow down to, my questions were, is he gonna have access to yoga? Is he gonna have access to meditation? And can he smoke? Like, seems kind of asinine that I'm asking these 3. The first 2 are for me. The next one's for him. No, he was doing a lot of yoga and meditation then. So that was very, very important. But of course, the one he ended up at, he could smoke all he wanted. But what's yoga and meditation? But they told me that was part of their program. But
Didn't really happen.
no.
He said no. Let's kind of go there a little bit and talk about what that process was like. You had a little bit of clean time under your belt,
I
What-
did. I
and-
did like
It's 5
six-
months.
fi-
5 months.
5 months. I always thought it was 6 months. I was always 1 month ahead.
Because Kevin's a number guy, and he likes like weird numbers. So he was going by some weird number system instead of day by day, and so he added a month to his
I did.
time accidentally.
Yeah. So yeah, I built up some time. It was great. And that was before my father passed.
That was 5 months, and then your father passed in May.
My father passed, and I was sober at the time. But that did it.
Sure.
It didn't hit me right then, though. Now, a little backstory with my father was that we hadn't spoken like 15 years. We had a big falling out when I was younger. Long story there, but both of us were very stubborn, didn't reach out to the other one. Big rift in our relationship. And I found out he was sick. And when I found that out, I didn't think twice about our situation, any of that stuff. I wanted to go see him. And me and my son went, and we went up to Buffalo, and we visited with him. And he had just found out that he was sick at that point. And man, it was a hard thing to watch. It was a hard thing to watch. And having such a short time to repair that relationship was really hard too. And these are things that I didn't really realize at the time. I didn't process all that stuff until after the fact. But watching the death process was really difficult, and that's part of the work I'm doing now with the Year to Live thing. But I stuffed all that emotion away, like I was really good at in my addiction. Was like, I'm not gonna think about this. I'm just gonna put it away. And that wave hit me after he passed, and man, I was a mess. It was a bad relapse. It was real bad. I mean, I was a mess to begin with in my addiction, but it kept getting worse. You know what I mean? And it's amazing that it could have got any worse, but it really did.
What did it look like from your point of view, Joe?
Well, I just want to say the first 5 months that he was sober, he wasn't doing meetings or anything. He was like, I got this. I'm like, do you think maybe you need to go to a meeting? No, I got this. From my point of view, it was extremely painful. I was there with him when his father passed away, and I knew the history and just watched him. And there was many days when he would look at me, and we'd be in the car going to pick up food for the family while we were in hospice, and he'd look at me, he's like, I want a drink. I'm like, let's go get a drink. And he'd be like, what? I'm like, if that's what you want, let's do it. And he's like, no, that's not what I want. I'm like, great, because I don't want to either, but like, it's your path. And so when it did happen, it was almost a month to the day, if my memory is right. It was real close. He and Brendan, his son, had gone out to play golf with the golf clubs his father left him. It was the only thing, his father really gave him. His father was a big golfer. And so they went and hit balls somewhere. I don't know what they were doing. Driving range, whatever they were doing. I was teaching a yoga class, and when I came home, he was just like a mess, and Brendan was there, and that was really hard. And then he'd put his car in a ditch, took 2 tow trucks to get it out the next day, and I was like, oh, it hurt me for him way more than it hurt me. I mean, I kind of saw it coming for a long time, and I understand, just from being in relationships with 2 other people, that relapse is just part of the process. And like, I kind of was glad it happened when it did, because it needed to get him into treatment and to get him to meetings. But it was a good 3-month long relapse.
Yeah.
And it was awful, and it was painful. I ended up moving out. One of the blessings of our relationship is that Kevin's been able to teach me how to not be codependent. And so instead of feeling like I needed to stay and watch, I was basically thrown out, which I was easy to, he doesn't probably remember that, but like, he didn't want me watching it, of course, and he knew it was happening, and it was painful, and it was sad, and it was hard. I mean, I didn't sleep for many nights, wondering, sometimes I would drive over there in the middle of the night looking through the windows and, okay, he's still alive. Okay, good. And I called his therapist once. It was like, what do I do? Like, it was not not pretty. And then one night I was at a friend's house watching her cat, and he called me at like 11:30 at night, and he's like, I need you to come take me to the hospital. And I was like, are you okay? And he's like, for now. And I was like, okay, go outside, smoke a cigarette, stop drinking, go outside and smoke a cigarette. I'm on my way. And so I got over there, and it was
There's no hesitancy on your part?
No. I figure if he's asking me to do that, something's not right. And so I was no hesitancy at all. And that was even a bad scene, just walking in the apartment trashed. And he's so fall down drunk, he doesn't even remember any of it. And I made him check himself in the emergency room, so it wasn't me doing it. You know, he stood there and tears running down his face and straight. I mean, you would have thought he was sober talking to these nurses, and they're looking at me. I'm like, he's blacked out right now. And they're like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, like he needs to be in here. And so they just took him into a room, and he told me to leave about 3 a.m, so I did. And next thing I know, the next morning he's calling me mad as hell that I checked him into the hospital. I said, dude, if I checked you in the hospital, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. You'd be in the psych ward. Like, you did that for yourself. And I left work and met him at the apartment. And by the time I got there, he had already called RHA's mobile crisis and was already like, I don't want to live like this. He's like, I'm going to end up killing myself. And
Who are amazing, by the way. Big shout out to Mobile Crisis. They are an extraordinary group of people. They really are.
They were there within an hour after him getting out of the hospital.
Yeah, to be able to walk into any situation, you don't even know what you're walking into half the time. That takes something. Yeah, it really does. Those people like save lives. They really do. Yeah, the scary thing. I mean, the scariest thing to me about my addiction was the blackouts. I would obviously not know what I was doing, but I got into self-harm a lot, and that was my way of punishing myself. And this is twisted reality, of course. But in blackouts, it would be very heightened at that point. And looking back on it, it was scary for like Jill to walk in on that situation, or a mobile crisis person, or any of that. And I still have a little bit of shame with that. I'm still dealing with. But
it's really hard to watch somebody hurting themselves, and that was a big problem for me. On the advice of his therapist, was like, you need to be safe first. And I'm like, but he's like, you do what you got to do, but you have to be safe first. And that was really hard. Like not knowing actually if I was going to see him again, because some of the stuff was pretty brutal, and having to be the one to tell him what he was doing. I even made some videos while he was blacked out and had to show it to him because he wouldn't believe. I made him listen to his messages. All of these things. I'm like, you need to hear what you say when you're in a blackout. I don't want to hear that. For like months, I heard that. I don't want to hear that. And then he started listening to it, and he's like, oh my God.
You might be able to relate with that. I mean, have you ever heard like a message or something you wrote?
Yeah, I've said this before on the podcast, but I used to do podcasts by myself, blacked out, annihilated in my apartment in West Palm Beach with just like a PlayStation headset, like a gaming headset. I would just sit there and just like ramble, just nonsense, right? Just nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's still a couple of those. I still have a couple of those files on like a flash drive at home, and it's. I wouldn't share them with anybody. Leave it right there.
No. Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
Right.
Speaking of, Jill actually sent me one of the voicemails.
Oh, yeah. Can we play that?
Go ahead and play that. I'm just
I did have them
I'll
for
act
a
it
while.
out for you.
I'm just kidding.
That's it's an interesting thing to get a phone call and you're like, what are you talking about? That wasn't even me. It was old stuff. I'm like, that wasn't even me. But it worked.
She went to detox here in Asheville?
No, I went to detox in Waynesville.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, you did check yourself in here.
I checked myself in here. I went to the ER and spent the night there before going off to Waynesville. And I liked the detox at Waynesville, honestly. It was a good experience. I really didn't like at first, I think anybody that goes into detox for the first time is like, a little pent up, a little bit like, oh, I can't smoke. That's a big
What?
thing. Like, ooh, I'm gonna flip out. But yeah, no phone, no clothes. They put you in your jumpsuit or whatever you got to wear, and the slippers and all that jazz. And yeah, I mean that part got me at first, but once I settled down, it was something to. That's when I opened up. That's when really like when people talk about vulnerability and like talking with other people and being open, that experience started the process for me. And it was sitting around with a group of addicts, and talking about your stuff and having little meetings and just getting to know the other people and seeing what they're going through. And it was just like, oh, this person just told me some shit that was like very real, and they didn't hesitate. And it's like, now I feel like I need to share with them too. And it's that
Reciprocity.
instant
of the group.
bonding
Yeah.
with strangers. And I haven't seen them since, and I don't know if I ever will, but those moments in that detox for a couple days was just like powerful stuff. It was, and it dried me out too. The key to getting initially sober, I do believe, is you need to be removed from your environment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my environment was very toxic and very like, if I stayed there, it wouldn't have ended.
Well, it's high risk. You'll end
Yeah.
up in jail. You'll end up, in the hospital,
Exactly.
or you won't make it. It's one of those three things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you decided to do an inpatient treatment facility down in Florida
Well,
shortly after.
it was kind of like arranged for me.
Yeah, so
while-
Jill facilitated.
while I
like
was in
this.
there.
I
Yeah.
sent his ass to rehab.
It was all news to me. It was like, you're off to Florida. I was like, oh,
Yeah, they didn't give us a whole lot of options with what his insurance covered. And because he was in detox and he was not able to have phone calls, they contacted me. RHA put this person in charge of figuring out where he was going to go to me. And I got to essentially tell him where he was going. And if there was one choice here, it was ADAC out in Black Mountain. And I had not heard great things, but I also knew that if he was there, I would try to go visit.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, I can't. I mean, I was going to try to come to Florida too, but it was like, it was further. You know what I mean? And I don't know. ADAC just seemed like it was way too close. Plus, this other place, they made it
Knowing
sound
what
like
you
there
would
was
have
yoga
already-
and meditation there.
Knowing what you had already been through and like
I needed
past
time
behaviors.
away
Yeah,
from
yeah.
him too, because like his relapse was so bad, it created so many issues. And I think I was pretty compassionate the whole time and understanding, but after a couple months, I was just like, I can't be with you anymore. You got to do your own journey. My journey's going this way.
I was a terrible partner. I really was. Awful.
Oh, did it?
Awful. I wouldn't have stayed with me.
You weren't that great. He's wonderful now. Like, so he went to rehab, and I told him I would move back in. I was like, I'm not going to be with you, but I will move back in and pay your bills and take care of the apartment until you come home, and then we'll figure it out. And there is some shit that went down while he was in rehab too that we had to sort through when he got back. But when he came back, I mean, he took me to Catawba Falls, which he had actually fallen off of years before while he was drunk, and survived.
Good story.
The boys got angels. And he took me to Catawba Falls like within a couple days after he got home, and we sat there for hours, and he told me every single lie he had ever told me.
It's like immediate accountability.
It went on for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It was like an hour and a half.
Uh-huh.
And that was even harder. It was hard, and it was hard to hear it. And I was like, I need a minute or 12 weeks to let this all integrate and let me feel how I feel about all of this. But essentially, like, so there's this thing that happens and you fall in love with someone's potential. I think that's what I had done in our early stages of our relationship. But then when he came home, it wasn't just him talking. He
became that potential.
Beyond what I ever thought he would be. And I know I mentioned this to you when we were just hanging out, but he's become my best teacher. He's taught me vulnerability. He's taught me dedication. He's taught me discipline. He's taught me restraint. He's so many things that he's taught me. I call him Captain Recovery all the time. Like, he is not the same person when we started dating. He's not that awful partner. He has grown so much and changed so much and done the work. And that's all I ever wanted in a partner, was somebody that was not perfect, knew it, because I don't want that. That's too much stress. And wants to do their work and wants to grow. And he has done that so many times over.
I can attest to that, because when you guys, we met through the Fellowship of Refuge Recovery, and one of the beauties of Refuge Recovery is that we are not an anonymous organization, so we can have this conversation.
Right.
In that we met through Refuge Recovery, and I remember like when Kevin first started coming around, he was like just like gung ho on like all these trips and taking people out and going to yoga and like facilitating all of these.
He
like,
started the activities.
He started the
department.
activities, yeah, and like facilitating all these activities and like being like just all over it. Like he owned it. He took ownership of that. I was like, dang, who is this cat? Where did he come from?
It's super neat to see that, and I see that in people. Keith, who's now the activities coordinator for Refuge, he was just like that. It's so neat to see that, and that's what people need. You know,
dude.
when you throw yourself
Some
into
purpose.
recovery, it's, you know, going in all like that. I mean, you have more strength in sobriety, I really believe, if you get more involved, of
Yeah,
course. you know?
certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've probably failed at in this show is talking in detail about refuge recovery and kind of what it is. And, you know, we've had guests on from the Sangha, and we just like, I don't know how much detail we've gone into as far as like what the program is. So I think like maybe we could spend some time kind of like getting into like what it is, and cause y'all got a lot going on out here in Nashville.
Yeah, we do.
And you also have a big event coming up next month.
Right
So
on.
like if this conversation might pique some interest, there is opportunities coming up to
great.
kind of get involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think one of the first things that like I see with you guys is that refuge recovery is intrinsic in that it's open to individuals of any addiction.
Yeah.
Right? It's not specific to narcotics. It's not specific to alcohol. It includes substances and behaviors, and any type of addictive behaviors, because the root cause of our addiction is kind of the suffering that we create through our clinging and craving to pleasure and our aversion to pain. It's all the same thing, right? And so
Exactly.
we're addressing the root cause of our behaviors throughout all of our lives. So like, how did you guys get involved in refuge recovery together? How did that happen? And then like, because you kind of talked about privately that have been involved in other fellowships before too in the past, and maybe present, but like what is the difference? What has refuge recovery done for you that maybe some of the other fellowships didn't?
Sure.
You know, like,
Yeah, you touched on some key points, and one of them being, I think, what makes Refuge a different program is that it's very accepting of other addictions and things like process addictions, which can show up as an eating disorder. It could show up as being addicted to technology, lots of different shopping,
Sex,
gambling, addiction, right? But I think, and I learned this from my rehab, was that it's so much different than like AA can be hand in hand with it. Like a lot of people that do refuge will also do
Sure.
AA, and also Noah, who is considered the founder of Refuge, who's dually enrolled, as I like to say. But that open environment makes a huge difference, because I think you're getting different viewpoints of how to stay sober, and it's not just one way. It's like, oh, this person's got an interesting idea and they don't have the same addiction that I do, but I can get something from that, their input. But man, how does Buddhism not go hand in hand with recovery? You know, I did an IOP program right out of treatment, and it was mindfulness. It's very mindfulness based, and Buddhism's all about mindfulness. But watching what we say, watching what we, our actions, what we do, watching what we eat, like all these different things, being mindful plays in your everyday, as trying to stay sober. And Refuge is really big on that. So they have a meditation at the beginning of every meeting, a 20-minute guided meditation, which is huge. And not only does it give you a chance, like you rush into a meeting, you sit down, and it's not like go, it's like, let's just ease into this sort of. And meditations can be really powerful for people, and they mean different things to different people. But it also gives you that time, like that you're getting in the moment. And I noticed like the value of sharing is so much deeper to me. I mean, it's very deep in all meetings, but it has a special quality to it after you meditate, because you've really like collected yourself, and that's important. And that's a big part of Refuge. And very active. Like you said, Asheville is a very active Refuge community where it's people going and doing things together, and it's going outside the meeting. That's really important. And yes, the regional conference is coming up March 15th through the 17th.
Yeah.
I believe is the dates. So when I say regional, that's anywhere from Tennessee on down to Florida. All the states in between, and representatives that are part of every one of those sanghas, as well as people that just go to Refuge, as well as teachers. It's going to be really interesting, and that's where we all met and had a good time, and absolutely, yeah. I mean,
I think one of the things that like Jill kind of hit on when we're talking about getting involved in yoga, well, she specifically said that she hears all the time, and I hear all the time people say I can't meditate, right? And there's just, and I was asking like, well, how do you get involved in yoga? Where do you start? That sort of thing. And I think with like meditation, like there's something extremely powerful with the intentionality of a group of 20 to 50 people sometimes gathering in one sacred place to sit still.
Even three,
yeah. And so like that's why when people come to me and say like, where do I start, I would say go to a meeting. Because that's where you're gonna have that presence of the community, of other like-minded folks who are there intentionally there to do the same thing.
And the guided meditations always help.
And they're simple. They're basic.
And who wouldn't say the Buddha was in addiction, right?
Yeah.
He indulged in every pleasure that was out there before he became enlightened, right? So, yeah.
It's probably definitely a little different out here in Asheville, being a much more liberal community than where I reside. But like you mentioned that B word over in the Bible Belt of rural Appalachia, and it's kind of taboo. It really is. And that's kind of like the struggle that I've had, is just like clarifying what is exactly it is that we're doing. And I get a lot of like weird looks and a lot of questions and a lot of like, oh, no, I'm not going to go to that. I'm a Christian. I attend whatever church, and it's.
Well, that's great, because you don't have to, you're not joining a religion. Buddhism is not a religion. And I think that's a really important thing. There can be Jewish Buddhists, there can be Christian Buddhists, there can be Hindi Buddhists, there can be any kind of, you don't even have to call yourself a Buddhist, but it's an ideal, it's a lifestyle, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with yoga. It's a lifestyle. It's how to be respectful in all of your words and your thoughts and your actions, and service is a big part of it, and just basically learning how to be a good person and stay sober.
Yeah, I think like the ethical lifestyle in combination with the mindfulness and heart practices make you aware of your behavior, and so that like we are committing to a specific lifestyle. We're committing to this eightfold path that we're going to live. And through the meditation practice, it allows me to see clearly when I'm not in line with that decision, with that choice that I've made to live this way.
You know,
And it ain't perfect, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like
Ain't that
you
right?
talked about doing yoga
Yeah.
for certain years. I mean, I've been in recovery with Refuge Recovery for over 4 years, and like my brain still goes out there. Somebody cuts me off, and I'm still like, "Fuck you." But then like I find space in between the behavior. So even though my mind automatically wants to go to worst case scenario, or my mind automatically wants to go here, I'm able to like see it before it happens, before the
Huge.
reaction happens.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Right? When you
The
talk
moment to pause.
the moment of pause, and we talk about addiction, and you're talking about addictive behaviors, like that's monumental. That's
Yes.
make or break. That's a life saving
Yep.
moment,
Yep.
right?
That changed the game for me. That changed the whole recovery game for me, was meditation. It really did. And Refuge was a big part of that. Like that being a big part of the program, you know. And I'll tell you two subtle differences, very subtle little differences between Refuge and other programs. You don't have to identify yourself. I'm Kevin. That's it. I'm not an addict.
have to
I'm not
label.
an alcoholic. The label is dropped, and I think that's big. And there's no coin system.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that was when I first relapsed. I didn't want to go back and get my, you know, I know that's a big part, like, go do it.
Yeah.
So you have to be responsible. Like, I like that. But at the,
The
same
shame
time,
and
it's
guilt
the
that's attached
shame.
with it. Yeah.
I didn't go back right away just for that reason. You know what I mean? And that's those two subtle differences can be huge in people's.
Some communities choose to like recognize clean time, but many don't. It's not like something that's in the literature, if I'm not mistaken. That some fellowships do celebrate, but many don't, because
Right.
it's not something that's outlined in the literature. And I agree with you. It's for like, and the same thing. It's like we're choosing to be mindful, and we're choosing to live in the present moment. So what does it matter how much time I have?
Yep.
The only moment that matters is this one, right?
Exactly. What's
Yep.
time?
What is
Yep.
time, dude? You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Jill, what has attending Refuge Recovery done for
Knocked over your tea.
For your-
Sorry.
for your personal recovery? Like what you kind of
Well,
identified with?
You asked how we found Refuge, and when Kevin came home from rehab, I had heard about it from a friend, and I was really wanting to go. I was going to AA meetings every day once he went to rehab, just initially because he had asked me to go and tell his fellowship where he was, and then I just loved it. It was a meditation group in the morning, and it was 30 seconds from the house, so I went every day for the whole month he was gone. And then he came home and we started going together, and then I heard about Refuge, so I had been hesitant to go. I waited till he got home, and I said, let's go check out this Buddhist-based recovery program and see what it's all about. And halfway through the first meeting, we just got done meditating, and they brought up the topic, and I don't remember what it was now, but halfway through it, I was like, oh my God, they're talking about codependency. Oh my God, that's me. And then, like a meeting later, somebody brought up something about an eating disorder, and I was like, oh, they have meetings for this kind of stuff? Like, I had never, when I battled with the eating disorder, the actual food restriction part, I was 11 to 16. So that was, oh my God, in the 80s, I didn't know, what's an 11-year-old going to know about an eating disorder support group? And then that just kind of like went off into the background. I didn't deal with it. I just shoved it and was like, well, that's not who I am anymore, so I'm just not going to deal with it. And I didn't have any of the behaviors. The mindset's still always kind of in the back of your mind. Even getting dressed to do this pod, like, does this make me look fat? I'm like, did I just do that before I do a podcast about eating disorders and body shaming? Yes, it still happens. And so, like, that's when it really hit me. For me, I was going as a support for him, and then it was like, oh wait, no, this is for me too. And it was really therapeutic and beneficial for me, especially being in 2 relationships before Kevin, 2 marriages with addicts, where I had shoved anger and bitterness and resentment way down, because that's not how I want to live my life, but it was there.
Yeah.
And so going to meetings really helped heal that for me too, hearing it from other people while he was 1,000 miles away, and hearing, oh, it's not his fault. Oh, he does love me. It's not about if he loves me or not. That whole, like, if you loved me, you would stop drinking. I hadn't done that with him, but I had done that in the past. And so, like, hearing that from other people and just getting a clearer understanding of what he was doing. And then when he came home and we're going to meetings and I'm hearing him share, and I'm like, I've never heard him say these things, you know, and being vulnerable and, you know, sharing things like so deep that it was so healing for me. And then for, you know, initially for, well, not initially, but for our relationship too. That's kind of how we ended up deciding to stay together. It was going to meetings together, and it was like, okay, I see that you're really working it.
And damn, we met you.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Refuge, we might not have met you.
Might not have been
Yep.
sitting at this table today.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
The meditation through Refuge Recovery, the meditations, there's kind of two formats. There's like the mindfulness practices, you know, paying attention to your breath and your body, sensations in the body, things like that. But there's also the heart practices. And so I would like to ask you, like, what have you learned from each of those, right? When I first started, right, it took me like 2 years to even like get into like some of those heart practices. For those that might not be aware, we're talking about like loving kindness, metta, compassion, forgiveness. I was like, I was like, you know, that's hippie shit, man. I don't need any of that stuff. I was like, this meditation,
New age.
yeah, it the mindfulness makes me feel good. I didn't really hurt anybody. I'd make 100 all kinds of excuses. I didn't really harm anybody but myself. There's no forgiveness needed, right? The only damage that was done was to me, you know, and so I just didn't want any of it, right? And it took a long time for me to get there. And when I did, like you kind of alluded to earlier, like with your yoga practice in the beginning, like the floodgates just opened up. And that's like 2 years into recovery after experiencing like some pretty traumatic events in my life, in recovery. I decided to, okay, these guys must be onto something, right? Like I was invested in Refuge Recovery to the point I had experienced the relief. I had remained sober for like 2 years. So I was like, they must be onto something. There must be something here. So I'm so hurt. I'm in such a vulnerable place. Let me just see what this is all about. And it was just like an eruption. There was so much shit down there that I had just kind of like buried and like avoided and not it's suppressed to the point where like they were like I was out of my mind, you know, like it just wasn't present. So I guess
Yeah, you brought up the two practices, and they're very different. And when I first got into meditation, it was like, oh, what is to meditation besides sitting there?
Yeah.
And like not thinking? Like those are the two things I thought made up meditation. But these practices, huge. I mean, and very different. So when I first got into it, mindfulness practice was the way for me, and I used my malas. So I would count my beads throughout the whole meditation. That really helped me focus, and I did that for a long time. And that focus, you know, whether it be your breath or whether it be your malas or a mantra or whatever it is that you repeat or focus on, that mindfulness piece, it bleeds into your life, right? It bleeds into the,
Totally.
yeah. I mean, you're having that time to pause, you're like slowing down, you're thinking, all that. I mean, the way it expands is amazing. But then the heart practices, yeah, they take a little bit longer to get into, I think. And but boy, once you're into it, you're into it. And it's amazing people I've seen that do it for the first time at a meeting, and they share about their experience with it. It's powerful. Like they really had, you know, this experience, you know, right there at the beginning of the meeting, and how much it meant to them. But for me, like, forgiveness meditation has been huge, and they always bring this up too, is like, forgive yourself, you know, like that's something we always forget. But when you have so much guilt and shame and stuff, like you have to start to ease that a little bit, and through the meditations, like a practical way to do it. But also with my father, you know, like we had so much unfinished business that we didn't get to clear up, So it was like, how do I communicate with him now? And
Yeah.
how do I get that forgiveness piece with him now? And meditation, big for that, you know.
And these heart practices were reciting essentially a mantra.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned forgiveness. Please forgive me. I forgive you. I forgive myself, essentially. You mentioned unfinished business.
Yeah.
All right. And, I'm sure many things contributed to have led up to this point in your life where you've decided to really look at some of the unfinished business, some of the stuff that might be on the table that might not have been addressed through this refuge recovery and through the heart practices and inventories and things like that. What are you getting into this year, Kevin?
I like your lead up. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is what you do, though.
This is what I do.
This is why you're a master. So good. So I started this little group, and it's very intimate right now, but it's around the book A Year to Live, and it's by Stephen Levine, however you want to say it. That was Noah's dad, or is Noah's dad. So he wrote this book, and it's all about like learning how to die.
Yeah,
Essentially,
that's exactly what it is.
That's
That's
what it
exactly
is.
what it is.
And I love this because a big part of my addiction, huge part of my addiction was fear of death.
Yeah, dude, totally.
Huge.
I think everybody,
Right?
Yeah.
But then in addiction, I'm running straight towards it, trying to die faster.
Brilliant.
I don't give a shit about life, right? Amazing. But this when I read the book, I was just like, wow, this is monumental. This is what I needed. And it's really nice to have the group. So at the end of the book, it talks about going month to month and having a small group and sharing this with a small group and how that can be a practice and how it can be like transformational for all people. And there's that sharing again, right? Like you're sharing something huge with each other. But learning how to be ready for death. I think this is mega. This is such a big thing because it's like I could walk out the door, I could get struck by lightning, hit by a car, or whatever it might be, and I'm ready for death because I prepared myself and I come to terms with it. And, watching, I've seen the death process now, and especially in recovery, you see it all the time, right? Like it's more apparent than ever in the recovery world. And, my father was clinging to life. He died kind of miserable, not happy. And that was hard for me to see. And I was like, not me. I want to be very peaceful when it comes to that time, whether it's an illness, a sickness, or sudden, I want to be in a peaceful place with it. And I'm learning that slowly. So there's meditations in the book. That's a part. Just keeping a journal is another big part. Started both those practices, and we're a month into it, me and my little group, and it's great. I love it, and I'm really hoping we make it through the whole year. But the whole idea is, right, like you have that year to live, so each month you're progressing towards your death, and you're noting your emotions and how you're feeling about it, and at the end of it, you want to become fully alive, right? So you want to be living life to the fullest and the most alive that you can be right before you die. Right?
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
So many people are
so
faced.
wanted you in there.
Yeah. I couldn't commit, man. How do I die with all this going on?
Yeah, you got a lot going
That's
on.
what I was trying to figure out. I thought about
I
it.
got a mushroom
man.
for that.
Yeah, I bet you do. There you
Can
go.
I say one quick thing that I wanted to say about the heart practices and the
Yes,
mindfulness
please,
practices is it's really interesting to watch. I've watched it so firsthand with Kevin, and it was such a neat thing to watch. I know what they're doing for me and how they've changed for me. It seems so contradictory that I've always really loved myself, even when I was depriving myself of food and like these things go through my head. I still have always had a really deep love for myself, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I'm lucky. Thank you, angels. What I got to witness with him doing the meditation, because he was coming with me to a different meditation center, and it was all just mindfulness, I guess. And then I started watching. he came home from rehab and still just in this like shame and guilt and shame and guilt. And I'm sorry I did all this stuff to you, blah, 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 blah. You know, did this stuff to myself. And seeing what I saw in his relapses, which I won't get into detail, but it was not pretty. And then watching him meditate, and over the course of the last year and a half, watching him do these practices and falling in love with himself. Not like with himself, but in love with himself. And like that has been the most beautiful thing to watch. One of my teachers the other day at the studio said something to me about reflecting on watching me grow and watching me turn into a lotus and like all of this stuff. And I'm like, and she's like, I know what you and Kevin were going through. I'm like, I'm nothing. Have you been paying attention to what he's doing? Like, he is a completely different person. It's just been a beautiful practice, and like watching him process, I guess, but watching him do the practices and really like himself.
The transformation was so huge, he decided he was ready to die. Right? Is that what?
The time has come.
He's
I'm
like,
good.
and I'm good. I'm out.
No, but it's really interesting. Like what I'm finding with this process too is that you kind of do a life review.
Totally. Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, I've accomplished a lot of the things that I wanted to accomplish, and that, you know, I still have goals and dreams and things like that, but it's like if I did die, I don't have that whole like I have so many things to do that I haven't done. I've done a lot of great stuff and it's awesome, and it's, you know, it's nice to be at that place in life, and everybody could be, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel yourself that, you know, you got a million things that you have left to do?
No, I wouldn't say left to do.
Uh-huh.
I would say, if anything, there's just like some guilt over like lost time. You know, like being out there for. I'm 37 years old. I was in active addiction for half of my life. You know, so like, I feel like there's a large. I feel like I have a lot to make up, a lot of time to make up for. Does that make sense? You know, no matter how much I forgive myself, no matter how much I continue to grow and to continue to learn how to love myself and continue to allow that to like blossom that you described, there's still that like missing time that I need to make up for. I try to do that and be happy with it, with whatever the outcome is, though. You know, that's the practice. So, one other thing I was kind of like wanted to talk to you, Kevin, about was you're a father.
Yes, sir.
Of a teenager. Is that true?
Oh yeah. That's a man there.
It's a man.
No, he's still a child.
And so, like, what going through what you've been through, right? And him probably like witnessing some of that. How have you learned to like parent? How have you learned to like teach him so many of those things that decisions that you probably would have, you know, preferred to do, things that you would have preferred to do differently? Like, how do you approach your son in a kind, compassionate, receptive way that he would receive this message to, like, you know, hopefully like inspire, influence him to live the life that you're living today?
Guilt and shame. No, it's crazy because he spent his whole life in my addiction. I mean, I was addicted 20-some odd years, and yeah, it was his whole upbringing. And I mean, he didn't see all that, and unfortunately, his mom was in addiction as well, so he got to see that on both sides. And yeah, I actually do have a lot of guilt and shame around that too that I'm dealing with. But yeah, the transformation's been pretty different because I'm more present with him, which is very different. That's a very different experience because a lot of the times I just wasn't there. I was there, but I wasn't there. You know what I mean? And that was a tough one because looking, like you said, it's like all that lost time. Yeah. Like, I'm like, man, where'd those little years go? I drank through them, you know, and that really sucks. But, you know, now's the time. It's like when I went to rehab, he told me he was proud of me. And I was like, big one, you know, like huge. Awesome. Thanks for saying that. Because he was somebody that I really thought, like, just looked down on me, you know, like my dad's a fuck up essentially, and it's big, you know, for him to say that and to actually watch me go through this process, because it's taught him, like he's told me, I don't want to drink ever. I don't want to, try drugs, and he hasn't. He's a pretty innocent kid, like and young man.
And
rather.
he's been to some refuge meetings with
He's
us,
come
which
to
has
refuge.
been good.
Yeah, fell asleep in a meditation.
Who hasn't?
I think we all do.
yeah. But
He
it
was just
great
meditating
exposure.
better than the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, it was awesome for him to see that, because like if my dad would have taken me to a meeting or something, I would have been blown away. Like it would have had an impact on me big time. Or if he even talked about his addiction, that would have made a huge difference between us, because I didn't understand his actions or what he was doing, or all that. And we had a counseling session together after I got sober, and that was huge. It was big, and we talked about a lot of the stuff about addiction and things like that. And I mean, he continually was like, "I'm proud of you," and I'm trying to impart the meditation and like some of those things. But at his age right now, I don't think he's ready for it. Or he's not that open to it just yet.
He's not against it. He's
not
meditated
against
with
it.
us.
Yeah, he's definitely meditated. Yeah,
It's just,
yeah. He hasn't fully grasped onto it yet.
Grabbed onto it yet.
But as a parent, I mean, that's big. And it's funny when I talk to people in recovery that are parents, that's such a source of pain for them and a hard thing to face. But it's also a huge motivator for people, like people that I see now that are like, the only reason I'm sober is my kids, and that's big, of course, definitely. And it's definitely, I'm glad to see that, and not like the abusive side of, parenting and stuff like that, because it could go either way with parents,
For sure. This Kundalini stuff. What
now we gonna
yeah,
get into
well,
some
what do you
Kundalini now.
like? What? So you're gonna be you're going through the teacher training.
Going through teacher training.
What's the process of that like? And like, what are you gonna?
Yoga University,
Yeah.
apparently. My goodness.
You talked about like writing, journaling, or
no
essay stuff or something.
Yeah, we have been in. I'm not sure how. We're 3/4 of the way done, and it's a 9-month, 7-month program, but it's split up into 1-week modules, and we've had 3, but they're intensive, and you're practicing and you're learning a lot of the background of yoga. Kundalini is the mother of all yoga, so all different yoga lineages have come from Kundalini, and so there's a lot to know about the chakras and the anatomy and the different systems in the body, the endocrine system, the digestive system. And Kundalini is a yoga where everyone has energy stored at the base of their spine. It's just been proven. We have it. Most people don't know how to tap into it. And so when you do Kundalini, you're doing different breath work and different postures and different mantras and things like that. And it moves the energy up your spine, all the way up through your chakras to the top of your head. And then it circulates around through the body, going to different organs and glandular systems and nervous systems and all these things, more so than how stretchy and how bendy you can be. That is involved. Yes, there's a lot of physical work involved, but so the process to get certified is we have to write a couple of papers, which are curriculums, and the other one is a test, which is all essay. So I just finished one paper that was a 10-class curriculum for beginners. The one I'm working on now, for beginners who have never done a yoga practice, and like explaining all of the different facets of Kundalini practice. But the one I'm working on now is a special population project, and it's a 5-class curriculum with research on a specific population that you want to bring Kundalini to, that they may not be able to make it to a studio. And so I'm doing mine on people in recovery from eating disorders.
Okay.
Not women, people. I actually found out through this research that 10 to 15% of males make up the population. Yeah, there's a 10 to 15% male population of people that suffer from an eating disorder. It's just not generally as known because men are less likely to seek treatment for it. So that's kind of like my focus right now is in it. I know what it's done for me with my recovery, and like I have a lot of digestive issues now, and I can't help but think that a lot of it stems from when I was still developing and I wasn't feeding myself, and so I'm sure that's probably part of it. but like doing exercises and breath works and mantras and things to heal those systems versus, if I can stand on my head. That's pretty, which I can't.
Yet.
Yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe if I use a wall, I can. But,
So
it's pretty important.
Is this something that you're going to probably pursue once you get the certification? Is take it into some?
I would love to, absolutely. I actually started, I don't know if you remember, I only did it for a few months and the attendance wasn't great, but I was doing a refuge recovery yoga class, and it probably was more the time than anything. It was on Saturdays. And but yes, I would absolutely love to take it into treatment centers, and I've actually talked to substance abuse treatment centers about meditation and yoga and stuff like that, but then I got into this training, so I kind of put all that on hold because I don't like to do things halfway. I like to be full in.
Do you have to have experience to take a Kundalini class?
No.
It could be open to any.
It's
any
open to anybody.
level.
Absolutely, and a teacher should be more than happy to offer modifications.
Cool. That sounds interesting. Joe's always talking about it on the podcast. He's always like talking about he's kind of like into like psychedelics and stuff like that. And he's always talking about just various states of consciousness that can be achieved through Kundalini.
The interesting thing is Kundalini came to the West in 1968 from Yogi Bhajan, who brought it here from India, and the reason he brought it here was because it was the hippie days.
Hippies,
Everybody was all messed up and on drugs, and he's like, you don't need substances. Let me show you what you can do with moving energy in your body, and at the same time you become healthier, happier, and holy. That was like his big thing, the 3HO. And he also said, I'm coming here to teach people. I'm coming here to teach teachers. I'm not coming here to get disciples or students or followers. I want to teach everyone how to do this so you can go teach people how to do it. And there's a man in my training that's 69 years old and had a heart transplant 5 years ago. What's up, John? And he's in there learning how to teach.
I want that to be me.
You got to practice Kundalini.
You're gonna be the 300-year-old man. Come on. Before we wrap things up, man, like we spent a lot of time tonight talking about experiences and recovery and stuff like that. But you guys like also are into like traveling. I noticed you traveled a lot this year. What was that? What's up with that? How'd that happen? What do you do?
We recently went to Ecuador for 2 weeks at Christmas with Kevin's son, and we both volunteer with the Literacy Council of Buncombe County. I'm starting to lose my words. And we both tutor English as a second language to folks, and my lady is from Ecuador. And first day I met her in January of last year when I first started working with her, I asked her where she was from. She said Ecuador. She's like, oh, you have to come for Christmas. And I'm like, okay, sure. Every week for 7 months, she told me what the price of plane tickets were until they were finally, she's like, we bought our plane tickets today. I want you to come. And we bought them that day, and we spent 2 weeks with her and her family all over Ecuador. I mean, we were going to family dinners. It was a family reunion with like 60 people at some time, and here's the 3 green cards.
Let me say, if you're going to eat the guinea pig, which they call koi, be
Don't-
very careful,
don't
because
do
I was pretty down and out sick eating on the guinea pig.
Don't eat the guinea
But
pig.
I had to.
You look like you're having fun, man. I seen you out there dancing and all dressed up
we
and
had
stuff.
so much fun dancing.
Oh, yes.
We taught the Ecuadorian people some new dance moves.
And big shout out to the Literacy Council,
they're
because
great.
they're an awesome organization, and service work, if we talk about service work and making a difference in somebody's life, teaching them to speak another language. And being over there, being in Ecuador, really like drove it home, because when you're trying to communicate with people and you don't speak the language, it's tough.
Yeah,
And
It's
it's frustrating.
You got a feel for what it was
Really
like.
fun.
Oh yeah,
Frustrating.
and I'll just say on that same note, the Literacy Council needs tutors so
Okay.
bad.
They do.
They have a
Cool.
9-month waiting list for
It's the
people.
Buncombe County Literacy Council.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And we all know how to speak English. Teach it to somebody.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
You know?
Well, listen, guys, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
the time, for the invitation to your lovely home.
Yes.
How can people connect with each of you if they're interested in chaga, if they're interested in yoga?
We're both on Facebook.
Facebook?
Jill
Facebook's
Love
big.
Phoenix. Or you
I-
can email.
I just got my own website officially,
Boom.
like yesterday, blueridgechaga.com.
Yes.
Pretty easy. Or Blue Ridge Chaga Connection. Sorry, don't forget the connection word in there. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in to NC Raw. Visit our website at www.ncraw.life to subscribe to the website where you can receive exclusive content delivered directly to your inbox. Y'all have an awesome night. Thanks.
Thanks.
Peace.
Bye. Satnam.